So he's suggesting they might have been making requests, but he didn't direct them to.
Essentially, yes. He denied personally ordering Walla to change things, implying his family members were acting on their own initiative.
Did he address the nature of the coverage itself?
He did. He argued that whatever positive coverage he might have received was so limited it couldn't possibly count as bribery. He pointed out that Walla was generally quite hostile towards him.
And he gave examples where they didn't do what was supposedly asked.
Exactly. He cited an instance where Walla apparently published a complaint against Mani Naftali, a former household employee who's been very critical of the Netanyahus, suggesting they didn't always toe the line.
So the coverage wasn't consistently favorable, undermining the bribery claim.
That's his argument. He also made a broader point about his policy as communications minister, claiming he aimed to encourage diverse media ownership.
How does that fit in?
Well, he contends this policy goal contradicts the indictment's premise that he was trying to improperly benefit one specific owner, Elevich, through Walla.
Interesting angle. What about the other side of the alleged deal, the regulatory benefits for Bizek?
On that front, Netanyahu basically claimed he was outside the loop. He distanced himself from the day-to-day regulatory decisions affecting Bissek and from the actions of his former director general at the ministry, Shlomo Filber.
Filber, who became a state witness, right?
Precisely. And Netanyahu has strongly implied that Filber's testimony against him isn't reliable.
How so?
He alleged Filber was heavily pressured by investigators. He mentioned a difficult confrontation Filber apparently had with another senior ministry official, Haran Levtov, and even suggested Filber might have been planning to fire Levtov. The implication is that Filber might have cut a deal or changed his story under duress.
Trying to cast doubt on a key witness's credibility. What about his relationship with the Eleviches themselves?
He characterized it as friendly, but not intensely close. He made a comparison, saying he saw Shaul and Iris Leivich about as often as he used to dine with Aaron Barak, the former Supreme Court Chief Justice, and his wife.
Trying to normalize the relationship, make it seem not unusual or suspiciously close.
Exactly. It's all part of painting a picture where there was no improper influence or exchange.
There was also that side note about his lawyer in this case, Boaz Ben-Zur.
Yes. Reportedly, Ben-Zur threatened to quit representing Netanyahu in Case 4000 if the government pushed ahead with its controversial judicial overhaul plans back in 2023.
Just shows the immense political pressure surrounding everything.
Absolutely. And Netanyahu himself summed up his view of Case 4000 by claiming investigators had to target him and just built a thesis not supported by the fact, a direct claim of bias.
Okay, so those are the core allegations and defenses in the three cases. What about the trial process itself? It started quite a while ago.
It did. May 24th, 2020, at the Jerusalem District Court. And initially, the prosecution had this huge list of potential witnesses, like 333 people.
Wow, 333.
Yeah, but that got trimmed down significantly to around 60, likely to try and speed things up a bit.
And the key state witnesses, we mentioned Filber. Who else?
Nir Hefetz, who used to be a close advisor and media person for Netanyahu, and Ari Harrow, a former staff, their testimonies are considered pretty critical for the process.
When did Netanyahu actually start testifying?
His testimony began in December 2024, but it's been quite stop-start.
Why the delays?
Well, initially it was needing time to prepare. Then there was a planned trip to Washington to meet President Trump about hostages and other diplomatic matters that caused a postponement. And more recently, he had minor search push some dates back, too.
So it's been drawn out. Has the defense raised issues about how the investigation itself was conducted?
Oh, definitely. A major theme for the defense is alleged misconduct. They claim Netanyahu's close associates were pressured, that investigators actively tried to flip them into becoming state witnesses against him.
Witness intimidation claims, essentially.
Yes, and they also constantly bring up what they see as biased media coverage, alleging a kind of coordination between parts of the media and law enforcement him negatively.
Though they do point to some outlets, like Channel 14 and Israel Hayom, as being exceptions, offering more sympathetic coverage.
Right, but perhaps the biggest procedural complaint from the defense has been about leaks.
Leaks from the investigation.
Yeah, numerous leaks of investigation materials finding their way into the media. The defense argues this was deliberate, aimed at poisoning public opinion against Netanyahu, and even influencing election results.
They called it unprecedented and massive, didn't they?
They did. They even filed formal complaints detailing, I think, over 120 specific instances of leaked information being published, arguing it fundamentally damaged the fairness of the process.
What was Netanyahu's reaction to these alleged leaks?
According to the sources, he initially hoped the Attorney General would step in and stop them, but later felt nothing was really done to hold those responsible accountable. There have also been some tense moments reported around the courthouse itself. Netanyahu's lawyer, Amit Haddad, protested about journalists aggressively questioning Netanyahu in the hallways.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. And there was that incident with the bereaved grandfather, too.
Right. During a court recess, a man whose grandson was killed in Lebanon confronted Netanyahu, apparently telling him to take off the hostage pin and Israeli flag he wears on his lapel, accusing him of sacrificing hostages and harming the country.
Just incredibly raw, and shows the intense emotions surrounding him and the trial.
Absolutely. It touches on much more than just the legal.
So taking all this in, what's Netanyahu's overall perspective on why this is happening? How does he frame it?
He consistently frames it as a witch hunt. He believes it's politically motivated, a coordinated effort by opponents in the media, law enforcement, and the legal system to force him out of office.
Does he single anyone out?
He's been critical of the former police commissioner, Roni Al-Sheikh, claiming Al-Sheikh got bad advice to target him and made false claims, which, in Netanyahu's view, contaminated the investigation from bottom to top. He also questioned the impartiality of the head of investigation, Roni Rittman. Apparently, Rittman wrongly suspected Netanyahu was somehow behind a sexual harassment complaint made against Rittman himself.
Wow.
Netanyahu's point is, how could Rittman possibly lead an unbiased investigation into him while holding that suspicion? He argues it created an inherent conflict of interest.
So fundamentally, he feels the whole process was stacked against him.
That's the strong impression conveyed in the sources, yes. He feels the game was rigged, and he maintains his complete innocence across all charges.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear there's a mountain of claims and counterclaims. We've touched on Case 1000, the gifts, and the friendship defense.
Case 2000, the alleged media deal, and the fraud breach of trust charges.
In Case 4000, the really intricate Bezekwala affair with the bribery accusations and debates over regulatory favors versus media coverage.
Plus all the procedural arguments, the witness pressure claims, the media bias, the constant issue of leaks.
It's a lot to take in. And crucial to remember, this isn't over. The trial has been going for years and continues.
Definitely highlights the complexity of it all, legally and politically, within Israel.
So maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is this. Having heard this breakdown drawn from these sources, what does it tell you about the interplay between law, politics, and media in Israel?
Yeah, how do these competing narratives, the detailed allegations from the prosecution versus the staunch defenses and claims of bias, shape your understanding of what justice looks like in such a high-profile case? What big questions are still lingering for you about this whole situation? We're plunging headfirst into something huge, the ongoing trial of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. There have been some really wild developments lately.
Absolutely. That demanding court schedule, for one.
And I couldn't believe the reports about, like, a Bugs Bunny doll showing up in court.
Oh, we'll get to that. Something.
So yeah, our info today comes from recent YouTube video transcripts, looking at different takes on it all.
Right, various perspectives.
And our mission is pretty simple, like help you navigate the legal stuff, the politics, point out the surprising bits and the main arguments.
So you get the picture without having to track down every detail yourself.
Let's jump in. First off, this trial's intensity, it's pretty full on. We're hearing judges decided Netanyahu has to testify from 9:30 a.m. to 8:00 p.m.
Yeah, that's a marathon session. His lawyers immediately called it unacceptable, improper even.
For anyone, right? Not just a PM.
Exactly. They stressed how crucial alertness is, especially in what they're calling the trial of his life.
So it's not just about getting through the witness list faster.
Well, the defense sees it differently. They think it's a message from the judges. Either, hurry this up, or maybe even a bit of a political statement. Impatience, perhaps.
Which feeds right into that other argument they're making, this de facto incapacity idea.
Right. That's a big one.
Forcing him into court for that long, they're saying it basically means he can't do his job as prime minister.
That's the core of it. They argue it's not purely legal. It's political. It crosses boundaries, they say.
Especially now with the war on multiple fronts.
Precisely. It directly impacts his ability to govern when, arguably, his presence is most needed. The defense paints it as this impossible choice. Defend yourself or lead the country.
And beyond the hours, there's this issue with courtroom behavior, journalists, protesters hassling him inside the court.
Yeah, with phones, apparently, despite a court order against it.
How is that even allowed to happen?
Well, it's been described as a disgrace, violation of court dignity. The argument is, look, he's dealing with state affairs. He shouldn't face these disruptions in court.
It highlights that tension, doesn't it, between the legal process and this kind of public spectacle.
Definitely. It risks turning a serious legal setting into something chaotic.
Okay, let's get into the cases themselves. The prosecution's starting point was interesting. They went with Case 1000 first, the gifts case.
Yeah, that surprised a few people. Not Case 4000, the Walla case, which everyone thought was the flagship case.
So Case 1000, remind us what that's about.
It's about gifts, allegedly from Arnon Milchan. Things like cigars, champagne. The value tossed around is about 700,000 shekels.
So why start there? What's the thinking?
Hard to say for sure. Maybe trying to establish a pattern of, improper benefits. Or perhaps it was seen as maybe lower-hanging fruit to start. Or just to keep the defense guessing.
And this is where the Bugs Bunny incident comes.
Okay, you have to walk us through it. A prosecutor, Jonathan Tadd, uses a doll.
It sounds surreal, doesn't it? But yeah, the goal was to challenge Netanyahu's timeline for his friendship with Milchan.
Netanyahu said it started later, right? When he was out of office.
He claimed 1999. The prosecution wanted to push it back to 1996 when he was PM.
And Bugs Bunny helps prove this. How?
Okay, so the story Tadmore told was that Mrs. Netanyahu requested a specific film screening and this, oversized Bugs Bunny doll, and Milchan supposedly trudged through the New York rain with it.
Wow. And Netanyahu's reaction?
Pretty sarcastic. Something like, sounds like a Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
The judges apparently weren't impressed either, told the prosecution to, move on from Bugs Bunny.
And the defense objected too, right? Saying questions about Mrs. Netanyahu were irrelevant.
Exactly. She's not on trial here. That was their point.
So critics looked at this whole Bugs Bunny episode and called it ridiculous, a circus. Yeah. And a waste of resources.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear about hundreds of investigative hours, lots of witness for this.
What does it signal when even the judges say, move on? Does it undermine the prosecution's strategy?
It certainly raises questions about focus, doesn't it? It can make the whole effort look less serious, maybe even desperate to some. It definitely risks turning public perception against the prosecution's approach if it seems like they're focusing on trivial theatrics.
Okay, so putting Bugs Bunny aside, what's the core defense on Case 1000?
It boils down to friendship. Netanyahu argues these were gifts within a deep, long-standing friendship that started before he was PM and continued through his terms. It wasn't, a transactional thing.
And they have counter evidence.
They point to things like Milchan's accountant saying most money went to his production company, not gifts. And Milchan's driver reportedly testified gifts were maybe 3 times a year, special occasions, holidays, not a constant flow.
Which leads the defense to question the police investigation itself, calling it negligent, maybe even intentional.
That's the implication they're building, yes.
Yeah.
That the investigation was perhaps biased or tunnel-visioned.
And how does the late lawyer Weinroth's opinion fit in?
Ah, yes. Weinroth apparently argued these were gifts of consumption. Basically, personal items for enjoyment, not bribes.
And the legal difference there is huge.
Massive. If they're just gifts of consumption, it potentially falls under disciplinary rules, like the gifts law think ethics breach, administrative penalties, not criminal indictment, which is obviously far more serious. It fundamentally changes the nature of the alleged offense.
Okay, let's pivot to Case 2000. This involves the newspaper Yediot Aharonot. What's the key takeaway here?
The really crucial detail, the one that jumps out, is that the prosecution didn't actually file bribery charges against Netanyahu in this specific case.
Really? Only against the publisher, Noni Moses.
Correct. And some legal analysts look at that and say, well, doesn't that implicitly suggest the prosecution itself didn't believe Netanyahu intended to commit bribery?
So some sources are calling this case a bad joke against Netanyahu.
That's the phrase used, yeah. Because if there's no bribery charge against him, what's the core accusation?
So what is Netanyahu's explanation for meeting with Moses? He recorded the conversations himself, didn't he?
He did. His defense is, look, he never thought Moses was offering a bribe or that he was soliciting one. He saw Moses as a difficult rival.
So the goal wasn't positive coverage.
He says no.
Yeah.
His aim was just to lower the hostility of the paper, make it less aggressively anti-Netanyahu.
And he ties this to a bigger goal about the media market.
Right. He claims his broader objective was actually diversifying the Israeli media landscape, making it less monolithic, not trying to specifically suppress Yediot or boost Israel Hayom, the pro-Netanyahu paper.
And does he argue the supposed deal even worked?
No. He points out that Yediot Aharonot kept attacking him even after these conversations. So his argument is, look, it clearly wasn't effective, therefore it wasn't a real quid pro quo.
Now, the prosecution also brought up how his interrogations, prearranged times, limited duration, suggesting special treatment.
Yes, they tried that angle. Netanyahu's response was pretty blunt. Coordinating with a sitting prime minister isn't special treatment, it's just necessary.
You cannot surprise a sitting prime minister, I quote.
Something like that. He framed it as logistical comments.
And did he consult lawyers during breaks? Like in the restroom?
He flatly denied it, said no, definitely not.